Hey everyone, welcome to week 68. Today is day 3, Wednesday. This is our third day of our Remnants week. And this week is trying to make sense of what happened last week. So we're trying to see what did we gain from last week. We're trying to identify those things and put them to maybe good use during this week, or maybe just, try to interiorize that information. So we'll see how we do. Okay, let's get started. This is day 3. This is our third day on our Remnants week. And remember, what we're trying to do throughout this week is to slow down and take a moment to reflect upon whatever it is that we learned from last week. And I'm not suggesting that this has to be a week-to-week thing. We push one week and then the next week we paint through moments of reflection and we try to distill all the information that came from the week before. That's actually pretty unrealistic, to be honest, because many times we're not ready after a week to make reflections upon the things that we did. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Sometimes it takes a year. Sometimes it takes 2 years to be able to, slow down and make a reflection about what we just produced. I remember when I was specifically working for shows. And I know this sounds a little weird, but I guess that was the way I was educated when I was a young artist. But that's how I understood people painted. You would take a year and a half or 2 years to prepare a show, and then you bet everything on that show because this really is like a broken roulette. I mean, it is crazy if you think about it, the way we artists work, the way, traditional painters work when you want to have like a solo show. It is insane. It is crazy because what you're basically doing is saying, I'm not going to make money for a year and a half or 2 years. So I better have some money saved up, or I might as well just live with my parents for that year and a half or those 2 years because I'm not going to be able to sell anything. So there's not going to be any money coming in. If I spend too much time teaching just to earn some money, I'm not going to have enough time to devote to my work. So paintings are going to suffer. So ideally, and this is like a utopian scenario, we want to work for a year and a half or 2 years in order to have this very solid body of work that you present, you socialize in a show. You not only want to have excellent criticism coming from fellow artists, coming from critics, curators, other directors. Not only do you want to hit all your notes in terms of that creative process and how it's been socialized, but you also want to sell stuff because you got to live. You have to make a living. I mean, one of the dreams that I always had when I was younger is that I could live from painting, that I could just have this life that I wanted, and the only thing I had to do was paint. The only thing I had to worry about was just making cool paintings. So we do have, and we can't feel guilty about this because if there's something that's absolute bullshit, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to describe it as such, if there's something that is complete bullshit, is the fact that they teach you that if you go to a gallery and you sell your work, you're kind of like selling out, that if you are concerned about money, it's almost as if you're infecting, the creative process with a commercial purpose, and that's obviously going to damage the virginal qualities of that creative process. So that's bullshit. One of the things, and it's very complicated, but one of the responsibilities that we have when we create, in our case, paintings, is that we have to find the right balance. We want to be able to produce the paintings that we enjoy, the paintings that we are moved by, and that we're driven to do. But if we're also making paintings that have no chance in hell of selling, then we're just going to dig our own grave. I mean, we're just going to make this super hard for ourselves. If you're up for that, just making your life miserable, then that's okay. But that's not me. That's not my personality. I think being a successful artist means having an understanding of how to insert that sense of being able to commercialize your work without compromising your creative output. So going back to what I was saying, imagine working for a year and a half, 2 years, and you suddenly get to that show and you have to sell everything. For it to be successful, you not only have to receive all these cool comments, and at some point, if you're not selling anything and if you're just showered with praise, you're like, oh, for God's sake, just, I can take 10 less comments that praise me, and I just want to sell a damn painting because those are fine. And I wish you could pay rent with the praises that you get, but you can't. So Imagine investing a year and a half, 2 years of your life with nobody assuring you that you're going to do well in a show. That's nuts. That is absolutely crazy. I think that that's one of the things that we as artists, many times, we just go like, oh yeah, that's just how it is. That's the nature of what we do. And I'm like, no, that's not right. Even if it is the nature of what we do, it doesn't make it right. It does not make it right. There's something super flawed in all of that. The saddest part is that people equate that sacrifice with how much you've invested, how true you are to your work. So if you go 10 years without selling anything, and if you continue doing your own thing, people are like, oh, that is admirable. That's a real artist right there. Of course, they're not going to buy a painting. They can't be bothered. But they are going to validate us, and they're going to say that we are true artists. Again, bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. There's no other word for that. I do think that the art world needs balance. I do think that the art world and the way art is commercialized needs to be far more balanced, especially with young people. This is a network where young people, young artists, with very few exceptions, are understood as liabilities. And if you're seen as a liability, if you're seen as a high-risk investment, nobody is going to invest in you. Nobody. But again, that's like, oh yeah, that's just the nature of what we do, and that's expected. I don't care. I don't care if it's expected. I don't care if it's just how it is. It is wrong. It is absolutely wrong. So I hope post-pandemic, galleries, institutions, artists, we have to all start fixing things because this doesn't work for all of us. And we should find a way where it does work for all of us. So it's not an art world that is presenting this image of incredibly successful artists, but does not convey the fact that those represent like the 0.1% of all working artists. That's the image that we sell, and it is insane, but that's also the expectation we create. Institutions also tell students that's what you can be. In fact, that's what you need to be, because if you're doing an MFA, you kind of have to be that artist to be able to pay your debt. So again, crazy, absolute insanity. And we've all accepted it, and we all think, yeah, that's just how it is. For the last time, it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. I don't know how to make it different. I really don't. What Danny and I tried was just to say, we're going to make a project, and we're going to try to sell paintings for, 10% of what we usually sell them. And we believe in this project, and we're going to make it free for everyone. So everything that sounded stupid, we were like, yeah, we're going to do that. Again, just to balance things out. I think yesterday for Spanish Tuesdays, I was speaking about when things are unbalanced, you have to go to the other side of the scale and actually put a lot of weight on that side in order to achieve balance. So maybe you have to start promoting, and maybe you have to start supporting causes that sound stupid, that sound backwards, because that's the only way things will get a little bit better. Because they won't get better just by putting Band-Aids on it. Maybe the art world is not concerned with being balanced. Maybe art schools and institutions can ask for so much money, ridiculous amounts of money, disproportionate amounts of money, because there is this imbalance. So we got to do something. We can't just insert ourselves into this machinery and think that, yeah, I'm going to take it down from the inside. No, you're not. That doesn't work that way. So what can you do? Super simple things. Support smaller artists. Support artists in every age group. I'm not going to say that you should not support, more mature artists, older artists. But if you can, support young artists because they have it the hardest. I don't care what other people say, but I remember when I was younger and it's hell. And I'm friends with a ton of young artists and it breaks your heart. It is hell for them. So if you can make their lives a little bit easier, if you can give them a little bit of hope, if you can inject a little bit of faith into what they're doing and just tell them, you know what? This is awesome. What you're doing is super cool. That means the world to them. That meant the world to me when I was younger. So know that that actually has an impact. So if you can support younger artists, that's amazing. That's fantastic. And just support smaller causes, even if they are risks, even if they're trying to do a project and it all falls apart. Just tell them, you know what? I honestly wanted to support you, not because I needed to see the results. I was never going to judge you by the results. I just believed in what you were doing. And if you had a hard time and you worked hard and I saw you working hard because you were kind enough to share your process with me and it just didn't work out, that's totally fine. That is totally fine. When you invest in people, when you're not expecting to have this beautiful object of art at the end, you're going to realize that all you're left with is just this human being. And you can invest in this human being. And you can just tell them, I believe in what you're doing, even if it doesn't work out. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, I'll help you out. And I know that sounds weird. Again, it sounds backwards because we are a result-driven species. All we want, all we dream of is to fast forward and see the results. So we have to start understanding that if things don't work the way they usually work in the bigger art world, we should not deem them as failures. Those are not failures. And we should teach younger artists that if they can't reach their goals, they haven't failed. This is incredibly tough, and that's why they need our help. Anyways, this absurd rant, and I apologize for it, but you guys know that part of the reason you come to these videos are my tangents. This rant originated because I was saying that, sometimes it's very, very hard to have a process of reflection following a process of creation. And I was putting the example of how traditionally you have to work for years, 2 years to have a solo show. And you can't expect after those 2 years of hard work to immediately start new work because it's insane. You haven't had time, in those 2 years to settle down and to reflect upon what you've done. It probably takes a year or maybe 2 years to understand what just happened. Time in art just works in a very weird way. And time, the time that we need to understand our processes is not concerned if we think that it's a long time or not. Time is not worried saying, oh, she just made a show. We better hurry up so that she can check this reflecting part off the list and she can get back to painting super quickly. No, we can't rush that. We can't. Sometimes it takes a year. Sometimes it takes 2 years. Trust me, there's people, it'll take them 10 years to understand what just happened because it's very, very hard. There's no other way of explaining it. This is just tough. So sadly, that's one of the sacrifices that we have to do, and we have to understand that is a part of the creative process. There are going to be points in our career, there's going to be times in our lives where we don't like anything we do, where we wake up and we have no energy to either paint or sculpt or draw or do a video, anything, whatever your creative output is. We just don't want to do it. And it takes time for us to understand how to get right back up again and say, okay, now I've found the necessary energy to do this whole new body of work. And I think we have to have the mental fortitude to deal with those things. The unjust part that has to do with commercial expectations that are not fair and disproportionate prices tied to education, those parts I cannot accept. But the part that is inherent to our own nature, to our own reflective process, I could do that. I can understand that. Even though this week, because a week is nothing. A week is just blinking. For the sake of this project, we give weeks, identities, and we give them titles, and we try to concentrate on single, what we call themes. But they're not really realistic. I mean, if we're trying to really echo a creative process, some of these weeks could be extended to years, and that would be completely expected. So for the sake of our project, we're taking a week off, quote unquote, because we're still painting. We're kind of painting through it, but we're trying to make sense of what happened last week. Or maybe the truth is, maybe last week wasn't that different, to be honest. I mean, we did a bunch of portraits where we concentrated on form and edge work and just pushing shapes. But if I look at the past, what is it, like over 300 paintings that we've done for the project? I mean, they're all the same. They all feel the same. I mean, these are not any different. If I take a step back and I look at my work objectively, it's all the same. It's all the same painting. So when I say, yeah, we need to take a week off to just reflect, I'm using last week as an excuse, but last week could be the last 5 years of our life. Last week could be the last 10 years of our painting practice. It obviously doesn't matter that it's a week. It's almost like ridiculous to think that, oh yeah, in a week I made so many advances and I'm just going to use a week to reflect upon them. And then I'm going to be re-energized and I'm totally up for re-signifying my painting, redesigning my painting. No, come on. Those things take years. So I'm obviously not being blind to that. I would never try to sell the idea that things can happen that quickly. But again, we're using these weeks as a pretext. That's all they are. It's just an excuse to talk about something else. And I think that this week it's very important to talk about the nature of what we do, the nature of the expectations, and how those expectations can sometimes be super harmful, and how the things that we've accepted as norm, our world is tough, this is not for weak people, this is only for the strong. Those things can be torn down. Those things can be balanced out. But we need different alternatives. We need creative people, young people, to be willing to try other things out. And the only way we're going to find hope in what young people do is if we believe in them and if we teach them that even if they don't reach their objectives, they have not failed. Their efforts were not in vain. I think that that is very important. But the only way we can do this is if we give them peace of mind. And if we support them, and if we tell them, even if the Kickstarter project doesn't work out, even if you weren't able to paint the number of paintings that you wanted to do, even if you have to present a show that's actually smaller, even if you weren't able to gather all the wonderful people that you wanted for this group show, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Keep going. Keep going. I still believe in you. We have to tell them that. It's the only way. If not, the art world is never going to change. It won't feel obligated to change. That's not what I wanted to talk about today. I apologize. I had something completely different in mind for today, but I'm going to stick with that. And if I can use today's painting as a way to visualize, to echo what I just said, how can I paint a little blob of cobalt teal and make it feel as if it was a Giorgio Morandi bottle? That's what I thought of. I know it sounds ridiculous, but again, stupid endeavors, we have to support them. We have to, even if we fail at them. So that's going to be it for today. Thank you, because you're amazing, and you let me go on rants that are ridiculous. About halfway into this one, I was like, what was I talking about? Like, my mouth was moving, and my brain was like, okay, you got to connect it with something, because this rant was born from something. What were you talking about? And I was able to make that connection. So thank God for that. So that was it for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow. As always, love you guys. Bye.